Hi, and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin. So Tony, what's on the show today?
Well, Steve, Michael talks about the advantages of a buyer's agent. Stephen discusses financial planning. But first up, Jon talks about different property markets around the country.
John, welcome to the New Property Show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Interesting. We're going to go deep today, and we're going to talk about development. You're not building wide, you're building up.
Building up.
Developers, there's a few challenges out there for you. You've got a good name, you've got a bad name. You're obviously covering sales, we're talking about apartments. Typically on the New Property Show, we're talking about land, but we're going to bring this into the city. Do you want to tell us what's happening in the market out there?
Sure. Well, look, I think to cover off at the start, we've only got a good name.
Perfect.
So in the city, look, you're right, there are a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
I think to get any development to stack up now, the price versus the existing market, there's a disparity. We're seeing buyers quite discerning when it comes to new builds, as they should be. And it's a patchy market out there. Developers have to work a lot harder. I think if you're to buy a site today and try and do a development on a site that you bought in today's market, it just wouldn't work.
You're going to have to wait a few years for that. Really, you probably almost want to buy a site that's already operating cash positive to neutral and just wait 5 or 10 years until that site becomes viable.
Well, if you look at our latest project we launched, Moray House, 306 apartments, we bought that site in 2017. So if we were to buy that site today, it would have cost us probably 3 times what it cost us in 2017, and the development just wouldn't have stacked up.
And I guess with what you guys are doing too, is you're part of the sales and marketing, so you really have to be that optimist. And when I say bad name before, is some of the things that come up, and it's been covered all on this show, is, and it's not necessarily from you guys, but it's from what people are selling, okay? So they've sold communal areas, body corporate, fixtures and quality, that sort of stuff. And obviously one of the reasons I have you on the show is I know you deliver great projects. But what separates you from, I guess, another developer? How you are making sure that quality assurance is happening, and then second to that, how to make sure your agents are delivering what's on paper.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think firstly, it is unfair to have a broad brush around apartment developments across all of Australia. Each state works very, very differently. The quality issues that we've seen in New South Wales just simply cannot happen in Victoria because of the way our superintendent system works. So if we look at Victoria, I think what separates Salvo, which is our organisation, from other developers, is that we are a development company. So we're an institution that keeps developing and develops building after building. That gives us a different mindset to a developer that might be an early entrant to the market or a one-off developer, where they might be trying to extract maximum value out of that particular project and move on to the next, or move on to maybe no other project. But we like to always leave a little bit of value on the table for our buyers, because we know that those buyers in our project today are going to be buyers in our project tomorrow. Then we also look at our assets as a whole of life asset. So we have a whole services part of our business where we've got building management team that go in and maintain our buildings for the life of that building. We've got property leasing, so we lease over 4,000 apartments across Melbourne. We've got property resales. So when we get a customer, we look at that customer as a whole of life customer. And I think that makes us make different decisions when we acquire sites, when we make design decisions, when we make material and fittings and fixture decisions, because we want things to last and we want to leave an enduring legacy.
And I think too, and this is, I'm just doing the numbers in my head here, but as a developer, if your whole outcome was just to build a project and sell it, which is obviously you're entitled to do that. Yeah. But the fact that you're doing the building management and also keeping the leasing, in terms of you costing a site versus another developer, you may have a small strategic advantage because you know how to value add that site to stack it up. Because I'm also curious to know how many investors there are nowadays in apartments versus people that are buying to live there. Is that something let's say we talk about the Moray development.
Moray House, yeah.
Moray House, 306.
Correct.
Yep.
270 sold now.
What does that look like?
In 9 months.
That's great.
Probably about 50-50, so 50% investors, 50% owner-occupiers. It's a pretty special building, so we've developed in that pocket of South Bank 6 towers across our journey. It's our last block of land there, so we sort of saved our best to last. Uninterrupted views in 3 directions, and then very good views in the 4th. So, and those views never to be built out. So we wanted to build something special. So one spine, which is what we think is our best, is all large 3 bedrooms. We've got these double-story sort of sky homes, and we've got some penthouses. So naturally with that, we attracted more owner-occupiers. But I think it's important to note with apartments, the way they're bought tends to change over time. So we seem to find with the off-plan sales, a lot more investors or people that don't know why they're buying. They're like, I like the building, I like the location, I think it'll be a good investment, but my kids might want to go there when they go to university or I might want to use it when I visit from the country. So people, when they're buying off-plan, tend to be more investment focused, and I think that's because of the time frame of their decision. Where people that are buying a second-hand apartment tend to be a lot more focused on, I'm going to live there, I'm an owner-occupier. We see with off-plan developments anywhere between 50 and up to 70% of buyers typically being investors, where that's completely flipped around for the second-hand market, where about 30% of buyers are investments.
And also, too, you have an arm that's helping people sell their existing properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've got 2 parts of our business. So one is Salvo, which is our development entity, and then the other part is The Move. And under The Move, we've got project marketing, where we help other developers sell their properties. We've got second-hand real estate sales. We've got 9 people in that business selling people's apartments after they no longer want them as their own. And then we've got a property management business where we've got 4,000 properties under management. Thanks
for coming on the New Property Show. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Mick, welcome to the New Property Show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. It's a bucket list item I can tick off.
Well, it is. Was a bucket list item being a buyer's agent over in Geelong? Talk to me about that story. How'd you turn into a buyer's agent?
I wouldn't say it was a bucket list item, but since I've done it, it's certainly the most fulfilling thing I've done in my 40 years on this planet, by far. Fantastic.
So I've obviously invited you here today for numerous different reasons. I mean, I'm not always for buyer's agents, to be honest. I'm a busy person. Sometimes I feel they go against the grain. They could interfere with the sales. But after some time doing some interviews, what I actually am seeing is you guys are doing a hell of a lot of work. You're doing a lot of pre-inspections. You actually do a lot of work for your clients. And there's probably more in it. Probably doing more work than a real estate agent. So that was only just a matter of perspective. And that's after spending some time with you. I've seen the amount of work that you go to. You're going to a property, you're inspecting it, going to auction, and that's obviously why you're here today. So I think you're really delivering. Do you want to talk to me about what your day-to-day life looks like?
Firstly, thanks, Brad. I really appreciate it. Not many know who we are, what we do, that we exist, unless they watch sort of Sydney Lux listings or those sort of shows. That gives them some exposure to the word buyer's agent / buyer's advocate. My daily routine is from prospecting right through to taking clients to settlement. But there's so many pitfalls. Everyone's bought a property at some point, or most people have. But there's so many possible pitfalls in that journey that people aren't even aware of. And I get along with some really fantastic sales agents. But if you're purchasing a property, you're assuming that the sales agent's priced it in the right bracket. You've got no real way of understanding what the property value is. We use a property valuation system that gives us the ability to actually show the client what we're willing to pay for it, what it's worth. My most recent client, we actually paid over the value. It was an owner-occupier, but they were aware of it. We told them at the start. They just said, we need this house, we love it, we want it. So yeah, there's a lot of elements in the buying journey that we can play a pivotal role in.
I think too, and I heard someone explain it the other day, where it's like if you have an issue. Say you go to a lawyer, someone's suing you, and the other side's suing you, and you go to that lawyer and you say, could you also represent me? So it's not going to make sense.
No.
A real estate's job, really, they've been engaged by the vendor to get the maximum amount of price and the most amount of or least amount of inconvenience, and they really should be working for the person that's employed them. Your role comes in and you're looking after the buyer. So you're sitting on the other end. So basically it's, I'd almost say real estate agent, but playing for this team. But it is the importance of actually getting properties off market. Do you want to talk to me about a strategic advantage that you might have? So ultimately unless you know how to use realestate.com, all the filters, all that sort of stuff, do you use certain technology that gives you an advantage? And how do you hear about a property before it goes live?
So you've probably hit one nail on the head. The advantage of us giving our clients exposure to the market before that property reaches realestate.com, it's a pivotal factor, and it's all about building relationships in this industry. I get probably 2 to 3 off markets sent to me daily in different regions. They don't always suit the client's brief, and that's totally fine. But the fact that we're getting exposure to them and giving our client the option to get first eyes on them, especially in a hot market. Through COVID, people were buying properties sight unseen on Facebook Lives. Right now, the Brisbane market's flying. The Western Australian market in Perth and Fremantle, same sort of deal. So the ability for us to give them access before the competition sees it, if we can lock away a property before realestate.com gets exposure to it, it's a huge advantage for our clients.
And what about to this? I've seen you build up your brand. You're giving a lot of free advice on your social media channels. How does that actually work? Are you finding giving all this free advice all over social media? Is that a PR stunt, or is that actually real advice? How does that work?
A combination of both. So a lot of the content I like to post is educational, if I can. Now that I'm starting to get people watching me, and you don't really know who's watching and who's not until you catch up with them. They say,
they're all
like
watching
your videos.
They're all watching.
Well, I'm realising that now. Does it work? Depends what your goal is. Is it to get clients regularly? Well, organically, that's going to take some time. Is it just to build a brand and let people know who you really are as a person? And that's what I like to think shines through with my social media.
I think so too.
They're going to see who I am. And there's not going to be anything different when we sit down and meet face to face. This is who I'll be through the entire journey. And
how do you celebrate a client's win?
The client and I, depending on who they are, if they like a beverage, we will pop a bottle of champagne or a nice bottle of red. Otherwise, it'll be flowers. It's all depending on the client and who they are, the family. I took the last one out for lunch with the kids. I'm big on building relationships. It's not transactional with me. We're having a barbecue in about 2 weeks with a client and their family that we purchased for that just moved down from Sydney. That's
I think there's nothing better than breaking bread over the dinner table or necessarily the house that you've been to. When I was doing some new home builds, I was invited to the housewarming parties, sometimes thrown under the bus saying a few words. But it is a great way, and I think it's important to celebrate the client. Let's get into the tricky stuff. If I was shopping around, I might look at realestate.com, a few different agents, but you guys do charge for your services. Do I need to pay all that money up front, or can you do a little bit now and a little bit on the settlement? How does that work?
So it's every buyer's advocate is different, but the two major ways that payment's done is a fixed fee or a percentage of the purchase price. Me personally, and I'm floating with a couple of different ideas at the moment, to be honest, but we all take a retainer up front because the rest of the payment doesn't come till settlement.
Of course.
So we're at least going to get remunerated. I always get stuck on that word. Remunerated for the work we do early. And I'm pretty honest with my clients. If they decide at any point that I'm not the buyer's advocate for them, I'm happy to rip the contract up and we just part ways. So I'm sticking with the fixed fee at the moment, and I buy commercial too, but industry standard with commercials 2%.
Okay. And then what about interstate? So look, I've heard of you doing some deals up in Queensland. So what's the advantage of you using a buyer's agent that's based in Melbourne versus one in Queensland? So could it be proximity? Your client itself is from Melbourne and they're looking to do an investment. What are some of the advantages there?
So with us having national reach, and by national reach I mean we've got boots on the ground in every state, it means you've got access to every single market. And every market goes through its own cycle. So we can pick the eyes out of the entire nation, depending on the asset class. So we're not just talking macro level, we're talking about micro level now, down to the street. So that gives a huge advantage to the client. You don't have to chase a buyer's advocate that you don't know in Queensland, if that's the market you're looking for. We've got the ability to reach out to Queensland, and we've got boots on the ground there.
There seems to be a lot more buyers agents now entering the market.
There is.
Are they real estate agents that couldn't make it, or are they people now that are really sort of coming there? Because in the USA, for example, a lot of the transactions, well, really about 97% of transactions are actually done through a buyer's agent. And in Australia, you guys are only really 3 or 4%.
Yep.
I think there's a lot more traction for buyer's agents to now sort of enter the market. But I do feel, do you have to go through the same courses? Do you have to understand, do you have to have a certificate for real estate, or do you just give advice, or how does that work?
Geez, you're throwing me under the bus here.
It's a tricky one.
It's, yes.
And you can choose how you answer.
Yes, and I will.
Yeah.
So you're right, firstly, with the US-based market, and the
Yep.
UK are the same. You actually
Yep.
can't buy a property in the UK without using a buyer's advocate, which is really fascinating. Right now, so in America, it's 1-to-1, sales agent to buyer's advocate, or agent. Here in Australia, we're about 1-to-20 at the moment. But we're a growing space. There are more buyer's advocates coming into this market weekly. And they're all coming through one particular school, which is Ben Handler's school. Most of them are coming through there. Do you need experience to come through that platform? No. A lot who are coming through there are not experienced. But you do need a real estate agent's licence to transact.
Well, I think that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, you need some sort of regulation in place, but you need to have a passion for property and for people. I actually see that a little bit differently, because your business is, your currency is people, is understanding those relationships. And I think one thing that I've noticed that you did differently is I've seen you in every single photo celebrating in different ways or another with the client. And I think that's probably the most satisfying part of it as well. And the experience comes. Everybody's got to start somewhere. End of the day, you've only been in the industry for a few years now, but you've got boots on the ground. But are you working in with other buyers agents in interstate?
Yep. So I'm part of an elite coaching program, which gives me the ability to pick the best agents that I can get eyes on, I suppose, across the nation, and they're the ones that we joint venture with. There has to be trust there, because it's at the end of the day, you've got one crack at your brand, and if you have a bad experience for a client, it can be really, really damaging to your brand. So I like to partner with the right people.
100%. I know there's some tough questions there today, but it wouldn't be anything else, because I think you absolutely excel. And I think you said if you're game enough to go on social media, which you are, and build such a good personal brand, that our clients would like and trust you as well. So I'm giving you a vote.
Thanks,
thank you for joining us on the New Property Show.
I appreciate it, I really do. Thanks,
Steve.
mate.
Steve, welcome to the New Property Show.
Hi Steve, thanks for having me.
That's all right. So one Steve to another.
Yes.
The question is this, financial planning and financial services, what is it and what do you guys actually do?
Okay, so the whole industry has been changed a lot over the last 5-10 years. A lot of financial planners, they specialise just on superannuation, retirement planning, things like that. So to find a financial planner in the property space is not easy. There's a number of reasons for that. They're not licensed to discuss property with clients. They feel that they can do better than direct property, and their gearing strategies, they're not allowed, and things like that. So it comes down to a lot of regulation. Okay. So what do? We are specialists in property advice for financial planners. Okay, I lead a team of financial planners and accountants, and we'll look at the long-term strategies with the clients. Okay, we're pro-property, but you've got to put it into perspective of the holistic approach, how it affects your cash flows, how it affects your goals. If it's not property investing, you shouldn't be just, I want to invest in a property. Why are you doing it? Like so much in life, we have to go, why do we do things? We've got to have a reason. So that's what we focus on. Why are you doing it? What are your goals and objectives? And let's find the right sort of property for you.
And how many meetings typically to get to that? So you obviously have an introductory meeting, which is goals and objectives, and some people don't really know that, so they need to map it out. You're 45, you've only got 20 years or 23 years left of your working career. Then you've obviously got to put that into planning, and I would agree with you also too, as I said, with sometimes I've come across financial planners or investors, and the thing is they don't practice what they preach. Correct. One, they're not investing. That's a concern. Or if someone's going to sell me stock, I say, cool, well, you must have a lot of that stock. Secondary, if they give me advice on property, I would like to know that they've got more properties than me. I think that's really important. But I guess where I want to go with that is, with your sessions, how many discovery sessions would you need, and then how does the advice continue?
Look, typically it's 2 sessions.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can all get done in one, but we don't want to rush things.
Yep.
So we sort of have a general first session, understanding where you're at, what you want to do, like most financial planners do. But then, because of the way we've structured, we can talk about properties as well. When it comes to the actual meeting with the financial advisor, they can talk about the strategy and they can talk about it in general terms. But most financial planners, nearly all financial planners, can't go saying buy 10 Smith Street down the road. Okay, they can't direct you to a particular price or anything like that, or apartment, house, development.
They just understand you need a property in the portfolio.
Yeah, and they'll do the financial modelling for you. They'll do the long-term projections and everything like that, and it will come with their usual warnings and disclaimers.
So would that also then lead into, we can keep this conversation going, but if I'm going to create a team of experts, I'm going to want a good accountant as well on there. So how does that come in there? Because obviously one's planning and obviously the numbers, but I'm going to want to double check those numbers.
Yeah.
How important is it to have a good accountant?
So it's very important. You've got to, the accountant should be able to work with the financial planner and vice versa.
Yep.
Okay, you're right when you said about the team.
Yep.
Okay, the team's really important. Okay, because typically an investor will have a good property person that's not licensed as a financial advisor, but they're licensed for property. Okay, then they'll have the financial advisor that's licensed in that. You've got to look, so they look at their risks as well. They make sure they've got the right insurances in place, because that's a really important component of a financial planner. And then you've got the accountant that will look at the numbers, okay? Most accountants are not proactive, they're reactive. So they can do the numbers, they do the compliance, the tax returns, GSTs, all that sort of stuff.
It's already too late then.
Correct, exactly. So your accountant, be aware if your accountant says, oh, you need a property and you should go and see John down the road. I know him really well. All right.
John seems like a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got to go and have a look and do your due diligence.
I think it's always important too. Like it's jokes aside, if you're shopping for a financial planner, you have 1 or 2 meetings. It does come down to a good gut feel. Same with an accountant. I do recommend, or even in all the books that I've read, to change your accountant every 3 to 5 years. Robert Kiyosaki's almost change it every year, but you want somebody who understands that. But it just want to keep that sharp. That's so important, and also to hopefully people are growing, so their needs they might go from self-employed to now working in trusts, to working in developments, to working in family trusts. So you do want somebody that can at least take you up a couple of levels, and then you can do that. And the other thing too is I've had 2 accountants before. It's a position where I'm doing personal tax, and then I'm also looking at advice. That's sort of like having a conveyancer and a solicitor, just somebody to oversee it. But really what I would like to know now is you've built the team, but let's look at long-term financial strategies. What's the stuff that, heaps of people cover different things on this show, but what are some of the key elements there in terms of long-term financial strategies we should know about?
Well, it comes down to exit strategies. You've got to know when you plan to get out, how long you plan to hold the property for. You want to know if you're building a portfolio of investment properties. Okay, so how many years do you think until you can afford the next one? Okay, if it's heavily negatively geared, is it cash flow positive? How quickly you can?
Do you have the technology to cover that?
We do. Yes. So a lot of our
like a cash projection or profit and loss statement or PIA.
All financial planners should be able to model it for you. Okay, even accountants can do it roughly. You can probably do it at home on your spreadsheets, but not quite as easily. But financial planners are very conservative, and you should be too when you're doing your projections.
I'd love a copy of that spreadsheet.
Definitely. After this, no problem, Steve. I'm sure you've got a few there.
Yeah, I do have a few spreadsheets.
But definitely, the financial modelling for the long term, how are you going to be able to afford a few?
Yeah.
Where are you in the property cycle
Yeah.
is important. And that borrowing serviceability. So the financial planner and the accountant should also be able to talk to you about structures. Okay, you might buy the first one to save you a bit of tax in your personal names. You might get your second one in your personal names, or one or the other partner. But then you might go to a trust, or you might go to a self-managed super fund. So the financial planners can look at all of that. And it's important, no matter what structure you've got, you're looking at the whole big picture.
Holistic,
and that's what the financial planners are excellent at. Okay, looking at your bigger picture.
So you're thinking, what I'm hearing there is the financial plan is the overview, and then everything else is the legs behind it, because obviously even us, we come in as the agent. Then you've got the conveyance, you've got the solicitor, you've got the bank manager.
Yes.
But the planner's really saying, okay, they're like your vision board, they're your goals.
Yes,
and most importantly, I think the biggest thing that people got to be careful is compliance.
Yes.
And also too, if things go wrong, how can we lose a property, and that can happen, but save these 6 other properties? I think it's important too, which is crossover with, I guess, with the assets. You've got to be super careful with. I think that's about as much as we can cover, because you've got a wealth of knowledge, but we're definitely going to get you back on here.
Fantastic.
Again, anything that you'd like to leave our audience with as a parting gift, a word of knowledge from Steve?
Oh, look, always do your due diligence, understand the principles of property investing. Make sure you're looking for the capital growth, not too heavily negatively geared.
Perfect.
And make sure you've got a strong team around you of experienced people.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Steve. Thank you.
That's all for this week, and thank you for joining us. If you want to see the full interviews, check out our website, thenewpropertyshow.tv, and we'll see you again next week.